So welcome everyone to the EPSRC-Defra Reimagining Circularity Funding Opportunity Informational webinar. I'm really excited to have so many of you here today to join us and to learn more about our funding opportunity. And we hope that this is an informative and enjoyable experience for you. So a bit about the format of today's webinar. So we'll have some introductions to the team leading this funding opportunity, some webinar housekeeping, information on applying to the funding opportunity itself, and a moderated question and answer session. So a bit of housekeeping. So this event is being recorded for asynchronous participation for those who can't join us live, and the recording will be up on the UKRI YouTube channel in due course. This event is fully closed captioned, and you can use the CC button at the top of your screen to show or hide these. If you show or hide them for you, it'll only be your setting and not for the whole meeting. Attendees are muted and your video is turned off by default, so don't worry, we can't see or hear you. And we've addressed all accessibility requests that we've received. If you have any tech issues, please use the chat to raise these. Please also note that your name may be shown. We're not using the raise hand function today, so this is not active. For our questions protocol, please submit your questions as the webinar progresses using the Q&A function at the top of your screen. If you have any questions about the UKRI funding service, please contact the team that manages that. And if you have any further questions, please remember to submit these to the Sustainable Manufacturing and Mobility team at EPSRC using the email address that's shown on the screen. Any eligibility questions which refer to a specific individual or team should also be directly emailed to us. And now I'm going to introduce the team who've all been working on this funding opportunity together. So there's a mix of us from both EPSRC and DEFRA, and a number of us are on the call today. My name is Remit. I'm a Senior Portfolio Manager in the EPSRC Sustainable Manufacturing and Mobility team. And I've been working on this with my colleagues, some of whom are here today. So Manika Sidhu has joined us today. She's a Portfolio Manager in our team, as well as Helen Niblock, who's the Head of Regional Engagement for North East Yorkshire and the Humber. And then also joined by colleagues from DEFRA, so Luke Ridley, who's the Joint Head of Circular Economy Science, Matt Royal, who's the Senior Scientific Officer, and John Angus, who's a Higher Scientific Officer. And there's also a number of us who've been working on this who are shown on this slide too. So purpose of today's webinar is to introduce and provide an overview of the funding opportunity to make sure all of you applying understand the key aims of the scheme, the application and assessment process, and also give all of you an opportunity for questions, and we will make sure you're able to do that. And we're going to publish a Q&A document afterwards. So if your question doesn't get answered today, don't worry, we'll make sure you get an answer through. First of all, please make sure that you've read the funding opportunity document. A link will be in the chat very shortly. And there's a QR code on the screen as well for you. A bit of background from an EPSRC perspective. So our green growth ambitions are to decarbonising our economy and society, creating an alternative energy future, and developing truly circular economies. It's a core aim to drive strategic change through research and innovation that maximises impact in targeted areas of UK opportunity. And this goes into two themes: clean energy and sustainable manufacturing and mobility. In terms of sustainable manufacturing and mobility, we have a vision and a mission. So the vision is for a sustainable, resilient, thriving and productive UK-wide manufacturing sector and a truly circular economy. So to enable this, our mission is to work in partnership with societal partners across and beyond UKRI for a variety of reasons, including supporting high-impact interdisciplinary research that is co-created with users and broader societal partners, to actively manage an environmentally sustainable portfolio, to accelerate translation and implementation of fundamental research, to deliver real-world impact, economic, social and environmental, enhancing the UK manufacturing base and realising a more circular economy, and to embed consideration of and design for manufacturing and the circular economy in research and training across the engineering and physical sciences landscape and throughout the research and innovation lifecycle. And we have a number of near-term priority research challenges and cross-cutting principles that you can see on the screen here. So in terms of circular economy for this opportunity, how are we defining it? So a number of you asked this before when you registered for our webinar. So this is about producing and consuming less, keeping the products, materials and resources we do use and produce in circulation at the highest value for as long as possible and recovering them after use, and also highlighting the importance of restoring nature. And in terms of the role of engineering and physical sciences, this is for a whole number of reasons, which include separation technologies, demanufacturing and remanufacturing technologies, and business tools, data science, and a whole variety of other things which are mentioned on the slide. And we've also had a number of circular economy activities at EPSRC, and we strive to have a balance between larger grants and funding opportunities that are flexible in project size and duration. So one of our current managed mode opportunities is the Research to Advance UK recycling capabilities. So this is at full stage. And we also have a number of large investments, including the Rescue M2 Hub, Recreate, DICE NetworkPlus, and Build Zero. And I'm going to hand over to Matt, and he will present some information from DEFRA.
Thanks, Matt. I'll try and, in the interest of time, do a bit of a whistle-stop tour, because I'm sure you're more interested in the actual call itself. So I'll just talk you through a few things about how circular economy aligns with our priorities, why the circular economy matters to us, how we plan to deliver it, and some examples of what we've funded so far. As you see from the slide, our mission, essentially, in a nutshell, is to try to leave the environment for the next generation in a better state than we found it. We cover a number of different areas, including the natural environment, all the way through to animal welfare and climate change adaptation. And we really want to drive a transition to a circular economy through policies, promote resource efficiency, waste reduction, sustainable production and consumption. We are committed to transitioning to a circular economy. We've convened a task force of experts to advise us on circular economy across our priority sectors. We want to embed it, circular economy RD&I, within our flagship R&D program to deliver transformative change. So why does it all matter? Linear economy is environmentally unsustainable, and in the long run, it'll hinder economic growth. I'm going to talk through just a couple of points from this slide to kind of give you an overview of what we think. So in terms of economic growth, circular economy could deliver economic growth by increasing UK's productivity. By using resources more efficiently, it means we'll be able to retain value in resources for much longer. And moving to a circular economy also will require new skills, which potentially encourages a more skilled and efficient workforce. It protects our environment and sustainability. By using and reusing products and materials in a circular way, we can kind of slow down the use of natural resources, landscape and habitat disruption, but it also helps limit biodiversity loss and is a key part to the UK's move to decarbonisation and hitting our statutory targets as well, such as net zero. And then finally, we want to reduce raw material dependence and improve resilience. World population is growing, and also the demand in its raw materials. These raw materials and critical minerals rely on really complex supply chains. So keeping materials and products in use for as long as possible, we're hoping can mitigate those economic risks associated with finite depleting resources, enable us to be more, reduce our dependency on material imports. I'll talk you through a little bit of how we're trying to deliver the circular economy. The circular is a key driver in government's growth mission through investment into new business models, research and innovation, and new infrastructure across the UK. We are developing a circular economy growth plan, building on reforms that have already been implemented, such as collection and packaging reforms, as well as things like the residual waste reduction targets. The growth plan is being developed with the Circular Economy Task Force, which is experts from academia, industry, and civil society. The Circular Economy Growth Plan will set out to how we transition to circular economy and drive economic growth, set out the interventions that the government will prioritise across the rest of the Parliament, how we partner with local places as well as academia and different actors such as industry, investors and civil society. And also we acknowledge that the strategy itself is England only in scope, but we want to work with our devolved nations to see how their circular economy strategies can progress with ours as well. Finally, just want to touch on a few things that we value in terms of the RD&I to help drive circular economy transition with some of the research that we've funded already with UKRI and other government departments. So first, I'd like to just touch on advanced recycling in partnership with EPSRC, which aims to fund innovative recycling, separating and sorting solutions for specific difficult to recycle materials and waste streams. We've got our Contracts for Innovation funding alongside the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, Innovate UK. This funding aims to help innovative businesses to test and assess the impact of resource efficiency solutions, and that's in 3 distinct themes, which are chemicals, constructions, and the automotive sector. And finally, Remat's already mentioned the NICER programme, which was set up in collaboration with UKRI. I won't go into too many details because Remat's already covered that. So the key question for this call really is, how will EPSRC and DEFRA's collaborative activities focusing on circular solutions which maximise value and extend life transform the UK? So we think it can do it in a number of ways by targeting those 4 tenets that you can see on the right hand side of the diagram. UK has always been a nation of research and innovators, so this is kind of the opportunity to lead in building a circular economy. It'll future-proof long-term growth and kind of protects the natural world for future generations, which we mentioned is one of DEFRA's priorities and key missions. And by doing this, it'll deliver a more resilient, regenerative economy. So we're considering new approaches, but also revisiting and refining current approaches and methodologies as well. And in that, with our strategic collaboration to help transform the UK into a circular economy international leader, it kind of focuses on the circular solutions that maximise value and extend the life of structures, products, components, materials as well, and deliver against not just DEFRA's priorities, but also EPSRC's priorities as well. Thanks, Remat. I think I'm passing back over to you.
Yep. What are the core aims of reimagining circularity? So is to build collaboration and knowledge exchange across research and societal partner communities within 3 specific challenge areas. So built environment, data and metrics, and textiles. And the networks will be leaders in the community to create step changes in circular solutions which maximize value and are currently underexplored. For example, retrofit, repurpose, refurbish, repair, and solutions which synthesize the aforementioned solutions together with others such as reuse. There's also a key plus component. So this is a flexible fund, which we'll cover a bit more later. And there's 3 streams: seed cord funding, demonstrators and feasibility studies, and research to innovation or translational research. And with the outcomes, we're hoping to create visible, collaborative, innovative, and interdisciplinary and or transdisciplinary UK circular economy communities, drive progress to the challenge areas, identify research challenges, opportunities, and priorities, foster an inclusive research environment that establishes a safe space to test new ways of working where failure is permitted and can be exploited to inform alternative approaches, lower barriers for engagement of non-academic societal partners, facilitating impact for circular economy action, grow capacity for and dissemination of good practice in circular economy, and provide early stage support for progressing research outputs towards the next stages in creation of real-world innovation and impact through the allocation of flexible funds. In terms of the funding available, so firstly, we'll fund at 80% of the full economic cost of a project. We have a total fund of £13 million, and within this table that is shown on the slide, the 100% full economic cost is 5.41 million, and the contribution for EPSRC and DEFRA is 4.32 million. This is outlined in our funding opportunity online. The funding duration is up to 36 months. And in terms of the flexible fund allocation, at least 60% of overall funds applied must be allocated to flexible funds, and at least 50% of the flexible fund must be used for research to innovation or translational research to accelerate a route to market. What is in Remit for each challenge area? So as I mentioned, we have 3: built environment, textiles, and data and metrics. And please remember to state your chosen area in your intent to submit and application. In terms of the challenge areas, for built environment, the focus is on the construction sector and skills development in circularity. And for this opportunity, we're defining built environment as the spaces and structures that shape daily life, including our homes, infrastructure, and public areas that support communities and businesses, as well as the products and materials of which they are composed. There's some examples for materials, products, and structures shown. But please see the funding opportunity for example outcomes. For textiles, our definition for this opportunity is the whole value chain, including clothing, fibers, furniture, household textiles, specialized uniform, and technical textiles, or where it is a significant value contributed to the final product, for example, automotive. And again, please see the funding opportunity for example outcomes. And lastly, for data and metrics, this is a cross-sector network advancing the circular economy through coordinated data sharing and the development of robust metrics, indicators, and frameworks to enable, measure, and accelerate progress across all DEFRA priority sectors, which are outlined online on our funding opportunity. And these are for 4 key outcomes, which are shown on the slide here. And what's in Remit for all projects? So these are circular solutions which maximize value and extend life. So namely, refuse, rethink, redesign, remanufacture, retrofit, reduce, reuse, repair, refurbish, and repurpose. There's also 2 concepts which complement the circular solutions, which are servitization and circular business models. And we have defined all of these for this funding opportunity, so it's clear for all of you. And please remember to have a look at the additional information section online on the funding finder for all those definitions. What's in Remit for all projects? So circular solutions which maximize value and extend life, designed for circularity. Also, your NetworkPlus thematic work can and is encouraged to reach many areas across the entire value chain from extraction to before the end of life, to generate robust, scalable, and policy-relevant evidence to support circular economy transitions. And we strongly encourage interdisciplinary approaches and engagement with real-world data contacts. Please also note funds cannot be requested to support the NetworkPlus to carry out research-related activities. Please seek these through the normal mechanisms, for example, responsive mode funding, or through the open competition using the flexible funds. And really reimagine circularity when articulating your NetworkPlus vision. So be adventurous and ambitious with the potential for high impact. Address real-world challenges with respect to the priority sectors and cross-cutting theme and how that will deliver impact. Prioritize environmental sustainability throughout the program and across the life cycle of a circular process to support sustainable approaches in relevant sectors and a greener UK economy. And consider the whole system, so technological, economic, social, cultural, and environmental, within which the proposed research outputs would sit. So what's not in Remit for all projects? So recycle and recover are circular solutions that are not in Remit. And please ensure that your NetworkPlus does not have the majority of proposed work outside of EPSRC Remit, does not have a sole focus on recycling, as this research area has been the topic of recent UKRI investments. We do understand that you might collaborate with individuals who work in this discipline area. However, their expertise must be sought in a secondary or collaborative capacity. Does not have a focus on one circular solution that maximizes value, and we'd like you to have a combination of 2 or more strategies. Does not have a focus on projects which would fit the remit of the Research to Advance UK Recycling Capabilities funding opportunity, and doesn't have a focus that is circularity of plastic packaging, as again, this topic has been the subject of several UKRI investments. We would like you to co-create solutions between different disciplines within and beyond EPSRC's remit as appropriate. However, the overall majority of your project must be within EPSRC remit. And we'd like you to co-create your work streams appropriately with interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary collaborators or both, and to co-create with external societal partners within spaces beyond academia who can provide further understanding of the contextual factors that influence the systems at appropriate disciplinary interfaces. And we recognize that circular economy work is often inter and or transdisciplinary. Multidisciplinarity is out of scope for this opportunity. And we have provided definitions for each of these disciplinary approaches online on the funding finder and on the slide here. And in terms of the elements and expectations of your NetworkPlus, so the core elements of the NetworkPlus, so you should engage widely and be inclusive, identify and address challenges and opportunities, support UKRI research strategy and government strategy, and engage with different places in the United Kingdom. And we also expect you to engage, include, and champion early and mid-career researchers and professional research enabling staff, for example, by inclusion on the management team, intentional mentorship, and/or provision of opportunities which particularly benefit individuals in these career stages and allow them the opportunity to build their networks. And there's more information for all of these aspects on the funding finder page. We also expect community building, user engagement, activities which support collaboration, networking, horizon scanning, and identify key research challenges. And in the generation of new ideas, help the community to navigate government strategies and inform the development of future strategy in circular economy. Incorporate open data sharing agreements to allow greater transparency and collaboration, and implement a systems approach overall. And these aspects should inform and influence the direction of your proposed NetworkPlus throughout its lifetime. There's also evaluation and monitoring to consider as well. So make sure you have a plan to evaluate and monitor your work, including milestones and key performance indicators. Plan to develop and report case studies annually through the submission of an annual report. And as the NetworkPlus progresses. There's also an expectation to report progress every 6 months to your advisory board and provide information on request to UKRI and DEFRA. To carry out continuous learning, be agile in activities, develop key performance indicators, and adapt according to feedback. And these annual reports will be used by UKRI and DEFRA to highlight outcomes and impact from the network and in informing thinking about future research, innovation, and evidence for policy making. In terms of the flexible funds, as I mentioned before, you must allocate at least 60% of the overall funds you apply for your flexible fund, and at least 50% of the flexible fund must be used for research to innovation or translational research to accelerate a route to market. And these fall under 3 very specific streams. So this is place-based demonstrators, feasibility studies, seed corn funding, and research to innovation or translational research. And members of your NetworkPlus team are ineligible to apply for the flexible funds themselves. The funds must be awarded as part of an open competition to the community. In terms of key points about the flexible funds, so these are to deliver impact and broader benefits to society, the economy, and the environment. They have to be made available at points during the NetworkPlus lifetime. They can be allocated to researchers at any organisation currently eligible for EPSRC funding. And we'd like you to include the costs in your cost section on the funding service, to specify the total size of the fund according to the balance of activity that your team proposed to undertake directly versus to disseminate through the fund, and to have a robust and auditable process implementing the distribution of budget externally. So remember to explain how you will ensure processes for the allocations of funds are fair and transparent. And the need for activities is identified by the NetworkPlus and agreed with UKRI and DEFRA. Please also note the proportion of funding allocated to the Plus element is significant and therefore a large commitment for the network lead and the lead organisation. And as I mentioned before, these are 3 work streams, so seed corn funding, research to innovation or translational research, and demonstrators / feasibility studies. And examples of each funding stream can be found in the call text. So what would a successful NetworkPlus actually look like? So this would have creation of leadership of diverse and inclusive interdisciplinary and or transdisciplinary research communities, both new and existing across academia, industry and policy, foster new connections between relevant communities and projects, including the involvement and support for early and mid-career researchers. And we strongly encourage you to form and establish long-lasting partnerships in local governments / with individuals in policy and with third sector community groups, to successfully embed the development of early and mid-career individuals within all NetworkPlus activities, to advocate for and propose good practices to enable others to take research outcomes forward in their own discipline. So, for example, toolkits, taxonomies, and roadmaps. And the purpose should be applicable wider than research with tangible relevancy to policy. To deliver an increase in projects addressing timely and strategically important challenges in selected research areas and sectors, and for the flexible funding to be successfully used for the outlined work streams that I mentioned before, to deliver impact and broader benefits to society, the economy, and the environment. And now I'm going to hand over to Helen for the next segment.
Thanks very much. I'm going to talk a little bit about applicant and funding eligibility. So in terms of who can apply for this funding opportunity, it is standard EPSRC eligibility requirements. So people based at UK research organisations. We do expect industrial project partners to be involved in these networks, but they cannot be an applicant. They have to be on as a project partner, and I'll speak a little bit about that in a couple of slides' time. As a project lead, you can only lead 1 application, but you could be involved in a second as a project co-lead. We don't have any demand management in this call, in terms of number of applications per organisation is not limited. And I think as Remat's already talked about, we want to encourage the involvement of senior professional enabling staff, and they can be listed as project co-leads on the applications and part of the leadership team. And a reminder there that there is a mandatory intent to submit stage, and we've got more information about that coming up. In terms of who should be in your team, we expect it to be interdisciplinary, as we've already talked about. So that should mean 2 or more researchers representing different areas of expertise, jointly applying to lead the network and be the co-leads. And we want to bring together diverse communities spanning multiple different partners and expertise, whilst the majority of the focus of the networks and the projects funded should be within the engineering and physical sciences remit. We do want you to involve collaborators from other areas of expertise, such as behavioural science, innovation and business models. We also want you to involve early and mid-career individuals, and we have quite a broad definition for what we mean by early and mid-career, but this is limited to the academic career. So this is postdoc, so those in an academic position, from those in their first position up to those who might have held a couple of grants in the past. And please do describe who's in your team on the applicant and team capability to deliver section in your application, and describing what stage of career the earlier and mid-career people are at. And in terms of that broad definition, that includes, we're not considering years of post-PhD, and it is according to the time spent in the academic career, recognising that people might have had a diversity of career experiences. So I'll talk a little bit about the funding that's available and what's eligible in terms of what you can apply for the funding. It is our standard business rules on eligibility, and there's links there that we put in the chat, and there's just a couple of screenshots of the pages that you can find on our website there for further information about our standard funding eligibility. But just to pick up on the flexible funds there, so you will put a heading of flexible funds within your application, and that can include both directly incurred and directly allocated expenditure. And it will be the responsibility of that project lead and the team to manage the governance and accountability of those funds and distributing those funds. And we'll expect an audit trail and a clear breakdown of how those funds have been spent in the final expenditure statement. And a reminder that as we, as EPSRC and DEFRA, are allocating these funds at 80% full economic cost, the flexible fund projects will also be funded at 80% FEC, so that the lead organisation is not losing out. So the host organisation of those flexible fund projects will have to top up with that extra 20%. And the standard headings, as usual with our funding applications, are available in terms of staff and other directly incurred costs. The only thing that's not applicable for this funding opportunity is we can't fund studentships through this call. And you just need to put the indicative costs at this stage. We'd like you to be as accurate as possible, but it's just to give us an idea of what we expect for the full stage. And I'm sure your universities will be expecting you to fully cost them as well, but it won't be assessed at the outline stage. And just also a note there that we expect you to be employing a grant manager, project manager on the application as well as part of the team. So I notice we've had a couple of questions around what is eligible and that breakdown between the network funds and the flexible funds. So this slide has got quite a lot on it, but it breaks down some of the activities that you might want to fund through the network side of things. But there is a box there for the flexible funds. So just to explain it in a little bit more detail, there'll be funding for running the network, and as a network we expect you to be doing a lot of community building and leadership and activity. So that could be workshops and engagement and setting up a website, promoting the sector and the theme that you're focusing on, horizon scanning and roadmap type activity. And then you will be managing those flexible funds that are open for other people to apply into for project related activity. A little bit more about the expectations on project partners. So a reminder that you are expected to have industry project partners as part of the network. They cannot be listed as applicants, they should be listed as project partners. There's no specific match funding requirement, but as a project partner, they should be contributing to the activity of the network and that should be stated in your application as well. There should be a cash or an in-kind contribution from the business partners. So the in-kind contribution could be their time to attend events or advisory board meetings, for example. And I'm just jumping down to the third point there, that they can't accept funds from the programme. As a business, money can only go to university partners, but they can have small amounts of funding, for example, to attend meetings, travel and subsistence to do that. And if appropriate for your network, you can involve international collaborators, and they can be included as project partners or as visiting researchers. And again, there's more information on the funding finder of how to do that. Things that cannot be funded through this. So when you're applying to run the network, it's not for research related activity. If you want to do a research program, that should be applied for through our standard responsive mode funding, or could be commissioned via the NetworkPlus flexible funds. As I've already said, we can't fund PhD studentships through this, and you can only have consumable levels of equipment. We're not funding large scale equipment, so anything over £25,000 is exempt from this call. As our standard eligibility, personal computers are not eligible, but if there are specific requirements for technology to run the network and the network activities, then that is allowed. And I'll hand back over to Remit.
Thanks, Helen. So some further considerations and information for you. So EPSRC aims to support a diverse and inclusive research environment where there is equality of opportunities, and we support people to work in a way that suits their personal circumstances. So this includes career breaks, support for people with caring responsibilities, flexible working and alternative working patterns. And we encourage you to centre EDI in your application. In terms of the integration of EDI in your application, are you expected to know about EDI as an applicant? Project teams are not expected to have specific expertise in EDI, but we will request an EDI plan at full stage. And in terms of what you should think about in your application, so how will you support capacity building and skills development across and beyond the programme? So team formation, career development for all involved. This includes your grant manager and research enabling staff, activities and outcome planning, and to integrate EDI principles in all parts of your application to ensure that you're fostering and nurturing research culture. And there's lots of different resources that you can have a look at, including the Good Research Resource Hub on the UKRI website, the UKRI People and Teams Action Plan, and the VTI Researcher Developer Framework. And the links for those will be in the chat very shortly. In terms of other considerations, so responsible innovation, trusted research and innovation, export control, visas and environmental sustainability. And again, the Good Research Resource Hub and the UKRI Environmental Sustainability Strategy has more details that you can have a look at there. There's also some additional conditions which are all outlined on the funding finder page, which include things like the community network expectations, advisory board membership and operations, management resourcing, publicity and branding, progress reports, EDI, flexible funds, management structure, and project officer appointment. And I'm going to go over the application and assessment process. So these are the key application dates. So the outline applications opened a few weeks ago on October 30th. And the intent to submit closing date is December 11th, and the outline application closing date is on the 15th of January. Full stage applications will open mid-March, close in mid-May, and the full stage interviews will commence in September 2026. And UKRI can offer disability and accessibility support for applicants during the application and assessment process. So please get in touch if you would like our support. And remember, there's a mandatory intent to submit form. So this can be found under the How to Apply section on the funding finder, and there's a QR code if you want to have a look, and we'll also paste the link into the chat. And it will request the following details. So project lead, project co-leads, which this list can change prior to your submission deadline. Contact details, academic host institution for the project lead, your chosen challenge area, project draft title, and your funding service application reference number. So you will need to begin an application on the funding service to get this number, but you won't be required to submit until the closing date. And again, UKRI can offer disability and accessibility support to you. Proposals can be multi-institutional. However, only one application form should be submitted for each bid. And the UKRI funding service is the way to submit. And please ensure sufficient time to create accounts for members of your project team who don't currently have an account, prepare for your research organisation submission process, and leave enough time between submitting your proposal to your research office and the funding opportunity closing date. And in terms of what you need to submit on the funding service, so this is a summary, core team, outline application questions, which we'll go over in the next few minutes, and project partner and letters, emails of support. So those are the project partner letters and emails of support, and project partner list is requested at this stage to manage conflicts of interest during the assessment process. And in terms of assessment itself, so for the outline, there's an assessment panel. And for invitable stages, there are interviews which are planned for the week commencing September 7th, 2026. In terms of how your application will be assessed, so in terms of DEFRA involvement, so DEFRA will recommend panel members have an observer at the panel to advise on DEFRA interest and scope, and won't be present as a panel member influencing the rank order. And we may take a portfolio approach. So subject to a satisfactory quality threshold being met, decisions may be made using a portfolio approach to ensure an appropriate geographic coverage across the UK. And we will seek as much as is practical to avoid excessive clustering of investments in any one geographic area. Portfolio distribution will also be considered at both stages in the assessment process, so both at outline and full stages. And in terms of the assessment criteria, so you have your summary, which is to identify the most suitable assessors for your application, your vision and approach, which is what are you hoping to achieve with your proposed work and how you will deliver it, applicant and team capability to deliver, so how will the application team deliver the proposed research programme and why are you the right team to deliver this work, costs, which again are only indicative and are not assessed, flexible funds, so how will you use and manage the flexible fund, and place, what are the place-related challenges or opportunities for your application, and added value, so what is the added value that this network would enable that would not be possible otherwise. And please have a look at the UKRI funding service as there are specific sub-prompts, and the assessment criteria can be found on the funding finder too. And at full application stage, there's a number of criteria that we will also ask you for, and all of this is detailed on the funding finder. And at full stage, we'll also ask you to describe clear and credible targets and success measures, including key performance indicators within the governance and advisory structures assessment criterion. And that brings us to the end. So please submit your questions using the Q&A function at the top of your screen. If you've got any eligibility questions pertaining to an individual or specific applicant group, they should be emailed directly to us. And if you've got questions about the UKRI funding service, please get in touch with the team that manages that. And thank you very much again for your patience with all of our technical glitches at the beginning. And with that, we're going to move into our panel discussion. And a few of us will join on screen for that.
Great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to try and moderate the questions and start posting them live as we go. But first, Helen, if it's okay, I'm going to turn to you. We've had a question about what do you mean by the community in the context of who can apply for flexible funding, assuming that Network will have a very broad membership outside the core management team. Are they eligible? Are they part of the community, or are they not eligible? And I'll just post that.
All right, thanks, Luke. And I will say that I think a few of us are able to stay on for a little bit longer past 3 o'clock, seeing as we had the technical issues at the start. But if you do need to go at 3, then please do. We'll hope to answer as many questions as we can. So in terms of applying for the flexible funds, that is the same eligibility as applying for the grant. So UKRI eligibility. So universities and eligible research organisations. There is a list of eligible organisations on the UKRI website. And yes, in the wider context of that question, there will be a broader community involving industry, policy, public sector, charities, for example, that might be involved in your network that aren't part of the core management team. So they might be involved in the network activities, the workshops and that kind of public engagement activity that you might be running, but they're not eligible to apply for the funds, for the flexible funding, but they could be involved in the projects and so contributing their ideas and their time, but the funding can only be awarded to universities and research organisations.
Great. Thank you very much. We've also had a couple of logistical questions, which I'll just cover off. So around the sharing of the slides in the webinar, we're going to be working on those over the next few days, but we will be sharing the Q&A, the slides, and the recording, the video, as soon as they are ready within the next week.
That'll be shared on the funding finder page.
Great, thank you. We've also had quite a few questions come in around the size of the network, the recommended minimum or maximum number of partners. I will post those in a moment. But the answer is that there's no limit on the number of project co-leads on an application or the limit on the applicant team. You can only have one project lead, but you can only be involved individually in 2 applications in total. You should consider the roles of each investigator and what they're contributing to the NetworkPlus, and only those managing the NetworkPlus should be listed in your application. And I believe that's a question that has also been answered previously via text. So I'll post that one now too. We've got quite a long question on how is the intent to submit used, and would you use to link different potential partners? Is a colleague from EPSRC able to help with that one?
Yep, sure. So this is something that we'll use for administrative purposes only to assist EPSRC in the logistical planning for the assessment of applications. So it's mandatory to provide an intent to submit, and if we don't have one from you, then your subsequent application, if you submit through the funding services, would be rejected. Also, providing an intent to submit does not mean that you have to submit to the opportunity if you change your mind. And we understand that the planned activities will change during the application development, and the application to the opportunity doesn't have to align fully with the intent to submit. Great,
thank you very much. We've also got a question here, which is, can not-for-profit, non-HEI organisations be the co-I and receive funding, or can they only be partners? There are quite a few questions as well. I think some of this has been addressed in the presentations themselves, but they can only be partners unless they are registered for UKRI funding. So the UKRI funding registration is really critical there. We also have a question on, could you confirm that letters of support are needed at the outline stage? Yes, they are. Rest of team, if you can be publishing some of the questions as I answer them. My fingers aren't fast enough to be trying to scroll through the very many great questions which have been asked, so thank you for that, to publish as I move through and try and answer. We have also had a question on whether life sciences could be included in DEFRA's and EPSRC's priority sectors. And the answer is yes. If they fit into the themes set out within the call, then they can be included in the sectors.
Shall I take the question on place?
Oh yeah, so, thank you.
Somebody's asked, could you elaborate on the place assessment criteria? I assume there'll only be one network plus per focus area. Should the focus of such a network be national? Yes, so that's correct. We will be funding 3 networks, 1 in each area. So 1 in built environment, 1 in textiles, and 1 in data and metrics. We expect these networks to have a national UK focus, but we also ask that some of your flexible fund projects will have a place focus. So there's that balance between the national and the local, and we will take a balanced approach to the networks that we fund. So we are only funding 3, and we don't want them all to be led by the same places. So we will assess using the assessment criteria. If there were applications that scored equally on quality, we then, as the funders, can then pick those to ensure that we've got a balanced portfolio across the geographic diversity of the UK.
Great. Thanks very much, Helen. Just to note, we're losing a couple of colleagues from the DEFRA team who've got other places to be, but we will stay on, as Helen said, for another few minutes to try and get through some more questions.
And we will publish all of the questions as a Q&A on the funding finder. So we will answer all the questions if we can't get them through them all this afternoon.
Great, thank you. We've also got another question on, will you fund single institution applications? So yes, the team should be justified, but we would expect the network to engage broadly across the UK. We've also had a question on whether construction professional bodies, and there's a few examples, RICS, I'm not entirely sure whether these are acronyms or abbreviations, but RICS, ICE, CIBSE, whether they're considered industrial partners, and the answer to that is yes.
There's been a couple of questions around the industrial partners and do they all need to be defined at the outline stage. We would like you to be as accurate as possible by including them in your application at the outline stage, particularly so that we can manage the conflicts of interest for our panel. But we do expect networks to evolve and to bring partners in throughout the lifetime of the network. So we'd expect you to have some of those established relationships and define who they are at the start, but we are expecting that to evolve throughout the lifetime. So there could be additional partners added at the full stage, but we wouldn't want there to be a huge difference from what you put in so that we can manage those conflicts in the panel.
Great, thank you. And we've just had another question about whether the same researcher can be involved in two different networks in the same topic area, i.e. both applications in the built environment. I'm just looking to EPSRC colleagues that I'm saying the right answer here, but individuals can be involved in two applications.
They can it could be like one project lead, one project co-lead, or two as project co-lead.
We've had a question here that asks, are relationships between universities and industry partners anticipated to be established at the outline stage, or is it sufficient to suggest potential partners and roles? I believe that was answered in the presentation, but Helen or Remit, do you want to clarify?
I thought I just answered that question or was attempting to answer it in that we would expect a list of project partners at the outline stage, and that can evolve to the full stage. But we will need details of who those project partners are and letters of support at the outline stage.
Great, thank you. More questions coming in around the recording. Once again, we will be sharing the recording of this call along with the Q&A document and the slides, obviously with the video, over the next few days. By the end of over the next week, we just need to kind of work up all of the questions and answers before we publish those.
There's been a question in around, can a grant manager be a project co-lead? And yes, they can be a senior professional research enabling staff. There's an interesting question that states, in the built environment, do you consider natural building materials in your definition of circular, or here focusing on finite materials, which are typically described as repair, reuse, recycle, etc.? Luke, did you have any more information on this one?
This might be one that I'm going to take away and get something written in response. I don't want to miss anything critical out.
Somebody's also asked about how many letters of support are needed. So I can't remember how we've done it on TFS, whether it needs to be single letters or just one big PDF, but there should be a letter from each project partner, but each project partner should be contributing to the project in some way with cash or in-kind support, and that should be detailed in the letter. We don't just want letters of support that say, I would like this network to be funded. We want their clear interest and contributions from those project partners.
Aware that time is ticking, maybe we should just take one final question. There's been a few questions just asking for a little bit more detail or perhaps some kind of reiteration on what the flexible funding should be spent on, which again I think was covered in the presentation. But Rema, as you covered that in the presentation, are you happy to just give another quick summary of what we're expecting?
Yeah, for sure. So there are three main. So, well, firstly, you have to allocate 60% of the overall funds you apply for your flexible fund, and at least 50% of the flexible fund has to be used for research to innovation or translational research to accelerate a route to market. And it has to be used in 3 different work streams, so targeted place-based demonstrators, feasibility studies, seed corn funding, which is high-risk projects, collaborative projects, and research to innovation or translational research, which are high-risk collaborative projects which can translate existing academic research into practical solutions. There's also other activities that the Flexible Fund can also fund, which are detailed on Funding Finder, but these are things like networking events, workshops, debates, lecture seminars, and communication costs, so things like a web server or presence for the project duration. But all of the things that are eligible for the Flexible Fund are all detailed on the UKRI Funding Finder page under what we're looking for. And there's a specific Flexible Fund section there where all the details exist.
Thank you very much for that. I think in the interest of time, we're going to have to call it a day there, but we have gathered all of the questions that have been asked, including the ones that we haven't managed to get to, so haven't yet been published within the chat. We'll be taking all of those away and generating a Q&A document and sharing that with everybody. And Rema, I think I'm handing over to you for the final bit.
Thank you for moderating the Q&A. And thank you very much to everyone in the audience. Please look out for the webinar outputs. They'll be published on the Funding Finder soon under additional information, and anyone who registered will also receive an email letting you know when that's up. If you've got any more questions, please get in touch with us through our main email address, which is manufacturingandce@epsrc.ukri.org. And we look forward to all of your applications. Thank you very much for joining us.